All right, third question from Ed Helinsky, or Helensky, I think. Helensky. It's at Mr. Ed 315. After 3 weeks, who do you have for the most surprising team? Surprising can be good or bad. I'll give you one of each. And on the bad side, I would say it's the Bengals. And a lot of people are going to point to Joe Burrow. They're going to point to Jamar Chase. Those guys were not perfect in week one. Certainly I think Joe Burrow showed some rust coming back off the wrist injury. I think Jamar Chase showed that he needed a little bit more ramping up after missing most of training camp. They were better in week two. Those guys played well enough to beat Kansas City and Arrowhead. And then in week three, I think those guys were everything you needed them to be to win that game. Joe Burrow threw for over 300 yards. Jamar Chase went for over 100 and a couple touchdowns. They aren't the problem. Right now, the defense is the problem. And I think where they are defensively a month from now will tell the tale. I picked the Bengals to be in the Super Bowl. So I think that they're capable of a lot more than where they're at right now. But I think the next month becomes critical to whether or not they can be there. I think they can overcome the 0-3 start. It's going to come down to do they get enough of a rush from the defensive line, and guys like Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. Without DJ Reed are there anymore. Of course, he got injured at the end of last year, and now he's not on the team anymore. And then, what do they get out of the corner position? And I think it's instructive to look at who got beat on Monday night. That was Dax Hill, who was drafted to play safety, who played inside corner at Michigan. Um, you have a guy who's a converted safety, converted nickel, playing outside corner, getting beat by one of the best receivers in football. Sort of indicative of the issue they've had there. Cam Taylor-Britt struggled a little bit on Monday night against Washington. So how do the young corners come along? What does the pass rush look like? That's going to determine where the Bengals go. Another team that would be in that bucket is the other team I picked to win the Super Bowl, to get to the Super Bowl. The team I actually picked to win the Super Bowl, and that's the Niners at 1-2. You obviously figured it'd look a little better than it has. On the upside, on the good surprise side, Seattle's obviously in that mix. I think Buffalo, you expected they'd be good. They've been good for a long time, but to be this dominant, that's really been eye-opening to watch them and see where they're at. The Steelers have been really good. The Commanders, I think, would be another one that you would look, but the one I'm going to pick out is the Minnesota Vikings. And I say surprise as a guy who like really does believe in what Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah have built there over the last couple of years. But I thought there would be at least a little bit more of a bump in the early part of the year, where losing your quarterback of the last 6 years in Kirk Cousins and maybe the most important player for the franchise over the last 10 years in Daniil Hunter was going to have some sort of effect. Instead, it's really just shown the strength of their program. You bring in Jonathan Grenard from Houston. You bring in Andrew Van Ginkel from Miami. You draft Dallas Turner, who didn't play on Sunday, but I think will be a valuable piece. You sign Sam Darnold. You draft J.J. McCarthy, and it looks like you're better. And the Giants win. I think, we were all kind of looking at it and saying, okay, well, where are the Giants? The last 2 weeks have really got my attention. To beat a Niners team that was coming off of beating the brakes off the Jets in week one. And yes, they were on short weeks, but they beat the brakes off the Jets in week one. To do that and then follow it up by beating a Houston Texans team that I think is going to be there in the end and could wind up making a conference title game this year. I I think you can't say enough for where Minnesota is. Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips, Josh McCown, all the guys they have coaching on the offensive side of the ball have obviously done a fantastic job with Sam Darnold, and getting him ready to play. And Darnold has played great, even in spots when Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson were on the field. Hawkinson obviously is a piece they'll get back a little bit later, but the other two have been a little nicked up. And then on defense, to get what they've gotten out of Brian Flores, as hard as they are to play against if you're another team, because of everything Brian Flores has done and how they've been able to get good, smart players in there, like a Grenard, like a Van Ginkel, having Harrison Smith as the captain on the back end of the defense. I think you cannot say enough for what the job the Vikings have done. And now they're younger. They have more flexibility going forward. It's just a really sound operation, and I'm really impressed with where the Vikings are at 3-0, and not just being at 3-0, but how they've got there.